In this part, we will talk about copying, moving, creating, and removing files and directories using the command line interface. Okay, but before this, you all know the ls command. So it just displays or lists the content of some directory. Okay, but if you use it with some file, so for example, let me pick this file. So if you just use it with some file, then nothing happens. It will just display the name of the file, right? But if you use it with the -l option, then it will display some details about this specific file, right? So we will see later what all those details mean, but these are permissions associated with the file. This is the user who is owner of this file. This is the group, this is the size of the file, this is the date of creation, and this is the file name. So you can do this with any file basically to get more details about the file. So for example, I can use this, and with the -l option, it gives me more details about this file. Okay. Okay, now let's see how to copy files, right? So to do this, you use the cp command. So there is a command called cp, and let's check the man pages of this command very quickly. So it is used to copy files and directories, and you can check the options and so on. But let's see how it works very quickly. So if we do cp, then you need to specify here the source, so from where you want to copy, and then the destination, right? So let's say that we want to copy, for example, this file /etc/host.conf, and we want to copy this file to our home directory. So let's say /home/Rafik, or we can just use tilde, right? Because this is the same thing as my home directory. So by doing this, now if I check my home directory, I will see that there is a file called host.conf. So this file from /etc/host.conf, it has been copied to my home directory. Okay. Now, if this file already exists, for example, this one already exists, and I try to copy this file to my home directory, but my home directory contains already a file with this name, then it will be overwritten, right? So this file will directly replace this one, okay? And if you want to ask the user before replacing or overwriting some file, then you can use the -i option, right? So if we use the -i option, then if there is a file which already exists, so for example, in my home directory, there is a file that already exists with the same name, right? So it is asking me, do you want to overwrite it? So if you say yes, it will be overwritten, right? And if you say no, it will not be overwritten, okay? So for example, um, if I take the documents directory, then there is such a file, right? So let's display its content first. So cat documents host.conf. So this file just contains some text. So for example, this is an example. Now, if I try to copy this one to my home directory /documents/host.conf, or without specifying the name, like this. So documents already contains a file, right? But if I use, it contains a file which has the same name as this one, right? But if now I use the -i option, then it will ask me, it will tell me that, do you want to overwrite this file host.conf, which is inside the documents directory, right? So if I say no, then it will not be overwritten. So let's check the content of this file. It is still as it was, right? But if I say yes, then it will be overwritten with the new content that comes from this one, okay? If you want to always avoid overwriting the files that exist without asking the user, then you can use the -n option. So if I use the -n option, if the destination contains a file with the same name as this one, then it will not be overwritten by default because I use this -n option. Okay. You can check the man pages of CP. So for example, if we search for this option -n, you'll see that um, it allows you to not overwrite an existing file. Okay. We can also copy a file and give it a different name at the destination. So for example, let's take the same example as before. So let's not use any option. So here we want to copy again this file from /etc/conf.host.conf. We want to copy it to, let's say, our home directory /documents. But here at the destination, we want to give it a new name. So let's call it, for example, host.conf.copy, for example, a new name, right? Or you can give it any name here, right? So if you do this, and now let's check the content of this documents directory, you'll see that there is a new file called host.conf.copy, right? Which contains the same thing as this file, right? You can basically give it any name. So let's say, for example, example.txt. So it has been copied now here. It contains the same thing as this, but it has a different name. Okay. And you can also copy several files at once. So for example, if I do cp and then from my home directory, I want to copy all the files that ends with .txt, right? And the destination would be my home directory /documents, right? So I want to copy all the files that ends with .txt from my home directory to this directory, okay? And let's use the -i option so that we are asked, the user is prompted, so he is asked if he wants to overwrite some file if it already exists here, right? So by doing this, all the files that ends with .txt has been copied to documents. So let's check this. If I do ls documents, then I can see that all the .txt file that were in my home directory, they were here, they have been copied now to the documents directory. Okay. And if I repeat the same thing, so it didn't ask us anything before because all those files didn't exist in the documents directory, but now they exist. So if I repeat the same operation, now the user will be asked, do you want to overwrite this file? And then you answer, for example, no. And then for each file, it will ask you, right? For each file that exists, it will ask you. And the user will say yes, for example, for this one, no for this one, no, yes, no, no. Okay. And you can also use the -r option if you want to copy all files and directories. So we can check the man pages again and we search for -r option. So let's see. So here you see that the -r option here allows you to copy recursively all the directories and files. So basically, so let's say that we want to copy some directory with all its content to the documents directory. So let's say, for example, that we have, let's check this folder. Yes, okay. So we have a directory called /etc/network manager, and we want to copy this directory with all its content, all those files and other directories and their contents also. We want to copy all this to our documents directory, right? So to do this, we can use the -r option, right? So cp, we want to copy all this network manager directory to our home directory / documents, right? So by doing this, now if we check the documents directory, we will see that there is a folder called network manager, right? And if we check the content of this folder, it contains everything, right, that comes from this directory. But you should be careful about using this -r option, because the entire directory structure will be copied, right? So this could result in copying a lot of files and directories. The second command that I wanted to show you, which works in a very similar way to the cp command, is the move command, so mv, right? Again, you can check the man pages of the mv command, but it's just used to move files, right? So basically, it has exactly the same syntax as the cp command. So move, and then you have source. So let me, for example, create first a file using this command touch. So let me create an empty file called mynewfile.txt, for example, right? So in our home directory, we have a file now called mynewfile.txt, right? And let's try to move this file from here to the documents directory. Okay, to do this, we just do move. The source is mynewfile.txt, and the destination is documents, right? So I want to move this file to this directory. So now if I check my current directory, there is no such file, right? This one disappeared. And if we check the documents directory, we will find it there. Okay, so it's here. And when you move a file, you can give it a new name at the destination. So let's try this. Let's now try to move this file from documents to my home directory. So I want to move it back to my home directory. So move. This file is inside the documents directory now. So this is the source, mynewfile.txt. And I want to move it to my home directory, right? So either I use this absolute path name, right? This is like /home/Rafik, right? Or I can use a relative path name. So I can just move it to the current directory, right? Which is my home directory. But let's use an absolute path name, all this. Or we can even do this, /home/Rafik. Now at this destination, at my home directory, let me give it a new name, right? So instead of keeping the same name, let me give it some new name. Let's call it a new name like this, .txt, okay? So now if we check the documents directory, we will not find that file, right? Because it has been moved to my home directory. So let's check my home directory. We can find this file there, and it has the new name, okay? Now, since we can give a new name to the file at the destination, we can actually use the mv command just to rename files. And to do this, we use the same source as the destination, and we just change the name of the file. So for example, if again I take this file and I just want to rename it, right? So I can use move this file, right? This one. It is in my current directory, so this is a relative name to this file, a relative path name. So I want to give it a new name, right? So let's just rename it to this is a new name .txt, for example, right? So now if we check this file, it is not named new name.txt, it has this new name, okay? And we can do the same thing to rename directories. So for example, if I want to rename this directory Network Manager to some other name, this directory is within the Documents directory, right? So I can use move, and then Documents, this directory Network Manager, and I want to give it a new name, right? So the source will be the same as the destination. So we are still in this Documents directory. Source, the same as the destination, right? This is the source, this is destination. But we just want to give it a new name to this folder. So let's just call it, for example, mynet, for example, just this, right? So now if we check the Documents directory, it contains mynet instead of Network Manager. So we just renamed this directory. Now let's see how to remove files. So let me check my home directory. I have all those files, and let's say that I want to remove abc.txt, right? So to do this, there is a command called rm, right? It stands for remove. It can be used to remove both files and directories, right? So rm, and then I just specify abc.txt, right? Let's check. It has been removed, right? It doesn't exist anymore here. And we can also use globin. So let me clear this. So for example, let's first check the content of the documents folder. It contains a lot of files with .txt, right? So if I want to remove all those files that ends with .txt, then I can use this, right? So rm and then all.txt, but within the directory documents, right? So within the directory documents slash anything.txt will be removed, right? And if I want to avoid accidental deletion when using this globin, then I can add this option -i, right? So this will ask the user before removing any file. So by doing this, it is asking me, do you want to remove document slash abc.txt? I will say yes. And then do you want to remove this? Yes, yes, and so on. Do you want to remove hello.txt? I will say no. Then yes for everything else. So let's check ls documents, and we can see that all the txt files has been removed except this one because we said no for this one. Okay. Now if you want to delete a directory, right? So for example, if I want to delete this directory, mynet, which is within the documents directory, then if I do just this, remove rm, and then I specify the path to this directory, mynet. If I just do this, it will complain. It will say, we cannot remove this because it's a directory, right? But if you use the -r option, like this, then you will be able to remove it and remove all its content, right? So if we do this, yeah, it will be removed. Okay, so there is no mynet directory anymore here. And as usual, feel free to use the man pages to get more information about the different options and their meaning. So for example, if I search here using slash, if I search for the -r option that we just used, then you'll see, let me press next, and then you will see that it allows to remove directories and their content recursively. Okay. Now let's see how to create files and directories. For files, it's very easy, right? So there is a command called touch. So if I do this, for example, touch documents, whatever.txt. So this will create a file, an empty file called whatever.txt within the documents directory, right? So if we check this, you see that this file has been created. And to create a new directory, there is a command, very simple one, which is called mkdir, right? So it stands for make directory. So if I just do mkdir aaa, this will create a directory called aaa in my current directory. So my current directory now will contain a new folder or new directory called aaa. You can create several directories at once. So for example, I want to create bbb, ccc, ddd, right? So all those directories has been created now, right? Now, what if I want to create a directory called downloads, and within this directory there is another directory called images, right? So if I do mkdir and then let's say downloads, and then within this directory I want another directory called images, right? So if you do this, so let me just correct this, downloads. So if you do this, this will not happen, right? So if you just do this, it will complain, right? So cannot create the directory images within within downloads, because downloads does not exist, right? So you need first to create downloads and then inside downloads create images, right? Before doing this, you need first to create downloads. But fortunately, there is an option called -p, and if we use this, it will create the directory images, but before that, it will first create the parent directory downloads, right? So if I just do this, then we can see that downloads has been created, and within downloads, let's check this. Within downloads, there is this subdirectory called images, right? So -p will create the parent directories as needed, right? So you can check the man pages of mkdir to get more information about this. So for example, if we check the -p option, you can see that it stands for parents, right? So if you want to create subfolders with their parents, then you can use the -p option, right? So it make parent directories as needed. So the man pages are very useful. You can always come back to them to get more information about any command.